I know the air I'm breathing, it's no good for my lungs. I do this every season, I hate when summer comes. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady, I've lost a million times already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down. I feel unable and so unworthy, my heart feels heavy, I've lost already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. I'm always self-destructive, I take a hit, I love it. Can you give me a second? I'm slow, got blurry vision. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady, I've lost a million times already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down. I feel unable and so unworthy, my heart feels heavy, I've lost already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. Please help me see the things that I am, I don't understand. I'm doing the best that I can right now, but it's never enough. I'm not even ready to slow down. Just slow down. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. I know the air I'm breathing, it's no good for my lungs. I do this every season, I hate when summer comes. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady, I've lost a million times already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down. I feel unable and so unworthy, my heart feels heavy, I've lost already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. I'm always self-destructive, I take a hit, I love it. Can you give me a second? I'm slow, got blurry vision. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady, I've lost a million times already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down. I feel unable and so unworthy, my heart feels heavy, I've lost already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. Please help me see the things that I am, I don't understand. I'm doing the best that I can right now, but it's never I know the air I'm breathing, it's no good for my lungs. I do this every season, I hate when summer comes. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady, I've lost a million times already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down. I feel unable and so unworthy, my heart feels heavy, I've lost already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. I'm always self-destructive, I take a hit, I love it. Can you give me a second? I'm slow, got blurry vision. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady, I've lost a million times already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down. I feel unable and so unworthy, my heart feels heavy, I've lost already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. Please help me see the things that I am, I don't understand. I'm doing the best that I can right now, but it's never enough. I'm not even ready to slow down. Just slow down. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now.
And he's pedal to the metal. Go, go! Welcome back, ladies and gents, to PSGL Season 32, and this is the F2 category on PC. That's a mouthful in itself. I am joined by the lovely George over to my, I guess this is my right.
Whichever which way.
Whichever which way. George, first of all, welcome to PSGL. It's the first time we've been in the league. How are you feeling? How are you feeling?
Just fine and dandy. Very happy to be cracking on with some good Formula One racing. Hopefully, all fingers crossed. That is. They have, of course, the option for this to not be great racing, but with it being Tier 4, there's going to be some quality young drivers in the mix, and hopefully some quality racing to be had as well.
Absolutely, and we're starting the season off. I wouldn't say on a massive high for the track. I would say it's like a mid-ground, love it or hate it, of the Spanish Grand Prix at Catalunya. So the Spanish Grand Prix, we're familiar with the track. It's been around for years.
Yes.
What are you expecting from this track?
Well, to be honest, not much overtaking. I'm going to be honest with you. Catalunya for me has always been one of my favourite tracks because I come from a very big motorcycling background, and in that particular arena of racing, Catalunya has played host to some of the all-time legendary races. In Formula 1 and car racing, though, it can be a little bit boring, but it is one of those tracks that's got a bit of everything. It's got fast corners in the first sector, it's got mid-speed corners in the second sector, and then very, very technical final sector as well. So it makes it a great place for a very balanced setup. And I think that ultimately will play a big part today. The variance in setups, if there is any, will be really, really apparent. And for overtaking, as little wings as possible, but for lap time, as much as possible.
Yeah, and just to add on that, we always see that it's one of the two tracks that really gets used quite a lot for qualifying, especially for league racing. You know, we've seen PSGL use it before, we've seen other leagues use it before, but the difficulty of this track is somewhat so in the middle. It is a track that will challenge you, but also show aspects of all areas, particularly turn 3. You've got to have a great amount of downforce to carry speed if you want to go fast, as well as the more technical sections from turns 13 to 16, where it's a lot slower. So I love the fact it's there, but as I said, I'm one of those people who don't like it. I feel it maybe not like it needs to be removed, but it needs to be replaced with another Spanish track, in my opinion.
Right. Well, I can tell you for a fact that the option of other Spanish tracks that you have are Aragon, which is definitely not going to be good for car racing. Jerez, which has proven to be good for car racing before in the early 2000s, late 90s. Everyone remembers Schumacher and Villeneuve at that particular venue. What other Spanish racetracks have you got? Well, that's just Valencia. That's a go-kart track, basically. You don't want to be going to any of those. So, for all intensive purposes, Catalunya is, whilst maybe not the best track in its racing performance, it certainly is one of the better tracks in terms of facilities, which is why Formula 1 tend to go there. And I think it actually does present a really good option for most teams and drivers and whatnot to get a good barometer of where they are with a certain season. Because, let's be honest, it can be a difficult one to start off and try and tune your car, but when you go to a place that's got a bit of everything to start the season, it gets you right nailed into all the bit of the technical areas of the track.
Yeah, and that's one thing I will miss is the fact that they've decided to use Bahrain as the preseason testing track instead of the Spanish track. But also at the same time, I think the movement was, 1, weather conditions, 2, I know Spanish couldn't fund it as well. But also the temperature as well. You know, they're doing winter testing quite late, so we didn't really see much of it. As I'm just keeping an eye on the lobby. We should be getting ready to go soon. And while the lobby readies up, a quick word from our sponsor, GT Omega.
If it's all going to be up on stream, there we go. Okay, so we'll get on to it. Start, finish, and all that good stuff. If I could actually see it, it's not actually being streamed to me right now. I can't see it now. Whatever. You know how it goes. The track is an interesting one. You've got fast flowing corners in that first sector, breaking it down from the S section into turn 3, up the hill, up to slight incline into turn 4 and 5, and then back down, up again. A little bit of elevation change on this track always makes for a fun ride. But it also is quite technical, quite challenging. F122 has presented a new variety of sausage curbs and also presented a new profiling to turn 10, which is going to make it very interesting to see if that becomes even more of an overtaking spot or not, especially when moving down towards the final sector. That's all one line. That's all going to be no overtaking, but there's lots of time to be made up in there, especially in qualifying, which we're about to get underway in here. And then, of course, it's a very, very long straight here at Barcelona. It can be one for overtaking. DRS will be paramount importance, but setup also plays a big role too when going for these straight line battles.
Yeah, definitely for sure, and I look forward to what we're going to get presented, as the lobby is taking a bit longer than usual, so we do apologise for that. Of course, we've got to remember also weather conditions. That could play a massive factor today. I think, to be honest, I want the opening race, fingers crossed, to be a very nice dry race, and it is looking dry as we do finally get the cars on track, and I feel I'll open it up, see dry, see what happens, and understand what the pace is going to be like.
Well, one can hope, as the cars are now finally getting out onto track. My game is far too loud for me to be trying to talk over at the moment. I'm going to have to sort that out very quick. But yeah, cars getting out onto the track, getting their first real test of what the conditions are going to be like out there. It does look, like you say, to be quite sunny. And at Barcelona, a track which is famous for having high tyre degradation, making sure that these soft tyres are in the window over qualifying is going to be of utmost importance. Of course, these soft tyres don't really last that very long on F1 22. You don't get the same diversity of strategy that you had in previous iterations of the Formula 1 title. But in F1 22, the soft tyres really are a qualifying or late safety car kind of tyre. You don't really see them getting stretched into races that much, especially at a track like Barcelona. We won't see these in the race, but taking it nice and easy on the outlap, but yet still finding that happy balance between keeping the heat in the tyres is going to be extremely important.
Absolutely, it's a hard thing to do, and especially when these drivers then eventually exit on such a technical section as well. If that tyre is not right, you're going to lose critical tenths of seconds just from the start of the lap, and then progressing through the lap. If that tyre isn't right, you're losing plenty of time. And we've got our first driver. It's the Haas driver of Jan, who will be trying to set the benchmark, of which I feel, if I've got my numbers correct, it's somewhere in the 121. It's been a hot minute since I've done Spain.
Yes, the times have come up a little bit since the last iterations of the cars. Obviously, now moving to ground effect makes a big difference in that particular aspect, but also having the sausage curbs now in F1 22 means that it does become a little bit more difficult to find the lap time as one might have done beforehand with those track limits. And of course, turn 10 being reprofiled means that you're not exactly going to be having comparable lap times from year to year. But for Halliday here, he seems to be on a pretty decent lap so far. You don't want to expect too much out of yourself on a first run, but if you can make yourself competitive, like Halliday is just trying to do just here, a decent run through that final sector, gets it hooked up nicely on the exit of the final corner and spins it round to open up DRS. We'll see what it's going to be. The first lap out is quite a way off your estimations. It's a 1:16.508. It's followed up by his teammate in Tripkov of a 1:16.527, but of course topped almost immediately by the Alfa Romeo with a 16.4.
Yeah, and I think this lap time will drop down further as Leonard also then now goes fastest, as the times will slowly go on the board. I've got a feeling now, so we've seen the lap time, I would not be surprised, because there is a bit of a gap we're forming from first to, at the moment, ninth, which I'm very surprised to see Jerry Van Bussel down in P10 right now. I feel this could dip somewhere into the 1:16.1s. I don't think we're going to see the 1:15s unless somebody can pull something out the bag, but clearly there's a couple of drivers that I am familiar with. As I said, Jerry Van Bussel, not where he should be. That's a man who was fighting for third in the F5 Championship and is down in 10th on his opening race.
Well, I would say also that if this format were to be the more traditional Q1 through 3 format, you might see a little bit more of those lower tier times, should we say, down towards the 1:15s. But as it's a short qualifying, 18 minutes only, you are pretty much going to have 3 runs at best. So to get all that time out of the car and out of the lap is going to be exceptionally difficult to get down towards the 1:15s. But I think a 1:16.1 is a reasonable expectation, shall we say. But like you see, at the moment, on board with Milan Mayer, he's currently just trying to spin it round into this second sector now. It's looking like a reasonable pace at the moment, but of course, first laps are a difficult barometer to go by. If the map is to be believed, that was a purple second sector, but like we can so often be told, it is a lie. in this game. So we'll see only when he crosses the line. But so far, track limits are all good, fine and dandy. Very tidy into this final sequence of corners. Don't take too much sausage curb because it will massively unsettle the car. Don't try and ride the curb on the exit as well. It's not Tony Hawk Pro Skater. You're not trying to do a grind and then run it out the way to the line. It's a decent lap. It puts him in 4th, just behind Karafolidis, and behind, of course, Goetze and Molnar, who are currently sitting up in the front row positions.
It's Van Naga, or Naga, I think that's how you pronounce it, putting a purple first, again, if we are there to believe. And, yeah, a definite spread across the grid. I'm looking at from 1st to 15th now. It's 7/10ths, but if you break that down just a little bit further, 1st to 6th, held within 1/10th, and then from, you've got 7th to 9th, again another 10th there. So about 2/10ths splits from 1st to 9th, which is a very, very close and competitive field. But I think Itzvan is going to be joining some of the top lots. 1st purple, 2nd purple. Is he going to hit a 3rd purple and possibly dethrone Molinar? I do apologise early on if I get your names wrong. Please correct me. I'll try my best to remember. As he crosses the line, it's P2! Oh, only just off the start of this qualifying session.
Yeah, 0.003 of a second there. A slightly messy final sector. Just clipped a little bit too much curb on the inside of the second to last corner, but it didn't seem to hamper him too much. Just having to compensate for those first 2 sectors, though. It's going to be a fun second run when we get to see István Nagy back on the track later on. For the time being, though, on laps at the moment, we are looking at currently P13, which is Mirandis. That's going to be 16.7 for him at the moment, but having just started this lap, we'll see how it goes. I believe he's starting a lap at least. Hopefully this isn't actually his in-lap. Never mind.
No, it's his in-lap.
Never mind. We'll switch off.
Yeah, who is definitely on the lap? It would be the Haas driver, and if I am not mistaken, the SHZ is for Team Shazoo, a Scottish branded team, very, very competitive, and have made a few development drivers, and which have put themselves into the esports scene, well, highly in the esports scene, and also a team I myself have been a member of, and yeah, they do capture some good drivers. Sorry, the name.
Haladej.
Thank you. I'm gonna call him Jan for now. Definitely showing good, a good light. Purple first. Currently P8. His teammate Jane in P9. So if this is a field of Shazoo, because you've also got Mino in P6 as well, I'd be proud of your drivers today.
Yeah, this is certainly looking positive. Currently 2.5 tenths up as he rounds the second sector as well. This is looking like quite the lap from Jan Haladej. Hopefully there can be some more extracted out of it in this final sector. He certainly left a lot on the table on the first go around this Barcelona circuit. Clips the apexes nicely. Doesn't quite go too wide onto the sausage curb either. Hooks it in nicely, and now the run to the line is where it all counts. Got the straight line speed, the DRS open, and a 16.205 is exactly what that Haas team would have ordered. Front rows right now for Haladej and Molnar.
Yeah, and it seems like Adair is not going to improve. The AlphaTauri driver currently in second, up on his time. He's not down, he is up on his time. So critically, that first sector not working out for him, and every 10th of a second counts because he's now 2 tenths behind the current leader. He was comfortably in second. He's now going to have to rethink his strategy, and I think a lot of these drivers are going to have to rethink with a lap that's put in like that.
Yes, indeed. Andre Molnar, though, at the moment, currently not having it. It's just over 100th down in the second sector on his lap overall, so this is not going to be looking like too much of improvement. But speaking of improvement, there's Tomas Gal, who's just popped into 3rd place, the teammate to the man we're, or at least I'm watching at the moment, in Andre Molnar. Leonard Goetze as well has just gone into P2, just a couple of hundredths, or just a single hundredth as a matter of fact, behind Jan Haladej up top. At the moment though, it seems to me that you are currently spectating Miltos Karafolidis, and hopefully this could be a good lap for him as well as he rounds turn 9. Now looks to try and get it pelted down the straight. Holds it in at 7th. I thought he was going to go to 7th. Just hold it in there, but he's up on his time as well. 1/10 up. That does register as a purple middle sector, but it is only 1/10 up on his personal best at the moment. So we'll see where that leaves him.
Yeah, I don't think, if at this rate, he's going to be somewhere P3 if he puts this across the line quite nicely. Possibly. Ooh. Yeah, it would definitely be P3. But as he rounds the final corner, Is he going to put in a stonking lap? Crosses the line, it is P3, and he's still a bit of a gap off P2, and critically, he's got one more run to close down the mark, and my 16-1 is definitely not out of contention here.
No, absolutely not. I completely agree. It is definitely still in the picture. But for Miltos there, it was not quite the perfect final sector. Just took a little bit too much curb when entering into the chicane. So we'll take a quick look at his teammate, see what he's up to. That's Tuomas Lamminen currently on the lap here as well. And there it is. Oh, blocking the pit lane. I'm not quite sure what's happened there. That's certainly one of those odd moments. Maybe Span going in towards the pit lane, and as such, it's disqualified him because he couldn't get out of the way fast enough. Either way, that promotes everybody up a position, and Andre Molnar will be starting from the back of the field. Now, Tuomas Lamminen has to try and run it towards the line. He is 200ths off his personal best time, so won't improve in position either. So that gives everything back up to the places at the top. Of course, that's P5 and 6 now gifted to the McLaren squad, all representing that FES brand as well. And we'll see what they're up to at the moment, with Milan Meyer currently looking like he's on a bit of a lap. As he exits the hill section, now going to try and bend it back down into this final sector. It's all about the curves, all about this chicane. Nails it perfectly on the first, gets it even better on the second, doesn't ride the curve on the exit, and absolutely pings it towards the line. I don't know how much troubling this is going to be. It's P4. Not a bad lap at all.
That is a very good lap indeed. His teammate Itzvan is behind. That's not a lap. That's 3 minutes in. Maybe not.
Dear.
That's definitely not a lap for sure. Mino, or Minnow, however you want to pronounce it, please.
Menno,
again.
I think.
DM me the correct pronunciation and I'll get it right. On his lap, has he improved from P7? Nope, that's definitely not a lap. 6 seconds down.
No.
Who is on a lap? Who is on a lap? Call it out if you see one.
Maybe Patrick Adler is just finishing one at the moment in P13. He's rounding the final corner at present. The lap is looking okay, not really pressing himself in towards the top 10 too heavily. It's 7th for him, a 10th up on his previous best time, but it's still only a 16.4. There is quite the gap, like you mentioned previously, between P2 and P3 at present. That gap is still looking to be tumbling on down just yet, but who else is on a lap at the moment? Maybe Bartosz Zamaro. No, he's a second off at the start of the second sector. Maybe ducking down as far as Mirandix. What's up with that? Well, second sector does look to be hustling it a little bit. Just round into turn 9 now. Opening the DRS. What's in this lap for him?
I don't know. Let's have a look. He goes across the Delta line. He is improving. He is nearly half a second behind the current pole sitter. So he's got to find something like a miracle within this last sector, as he does go wide. It does not register as track limit, so lucky for the Williams.
He's lost a lot of time there.
Yeah, he's lucky for the Williams drivers. Does dive into the pits and decides to abort the time, but Jan in the Haas, what can he do? Can he push this car into the 1:16.1s, or is it not going to be his day to put it into a 16.1? He needs to increase his gap. He needs to defend off that Red Bull driver. He's going to come up to the line. 1:16.0. Wow. He puts in another brilliant lap. Jan from Shizou showing what he's made of.
What a brilliant lap from Halliday. Gets it completely hooked up in that final sector. It was inch perfect for what he'd been trying to do previously. Now he's got some competition coming through that final sector as well, though. Tamas Gal in the Alpha Tauri, looking to try and round the final corner in much the same fashion. He was up only briefly on his lap time, but it's only going to be a marginal improvement of 0.05 of a second. Unfortunately, that doesn't improve him in position by all that much. It just slots him ahead of Karafalidis. But apart from that, it's not going to be troubling those top two again. It is still the Haas, followed by the Red Bull of Goetze in P2, followed by Gal in the Alpha Tauri, and then Karafalidis in the Alfa Romeo in P4.
Critically, the Haas driver has gone against the grain. So he now needs to quit. If he wants one more shot, he needs to get this car in now, and as soon as possible, because you've got to allow time for your car to get into the pits, do the whole animation, so you can see as the McLaren driver pulls in, actually we've got the Mercedes on the screen, pull in, get the car in, change a tyre, reset the fuel to a lower level again, and go out. So there is a lot of time constraints for these drivers if he wants to go for one more lap. Otherwise, the rest of the pack are in a fairly comfortable position to put in one last run to see what they can do. So the now or never will begin.
Got to remember, it is still a relatively short lap here as well, with it only being a 1:16, so your outlap pace isn't going to be too bad. I think Tomas Gal might have missed the cutoff, though. He did just barrel it into the pit lane at breakneck pace, but I don't think it's going to be too troubling for him. One of the first drivers out on track at the moment is Jane Tripkov, in the sister car to the current pole sitter, the provisional pole sitter, Halliday. We'll see what he's got to offer at the moment. You remember on that first run, it was the Hasses fronting the field with that 1 and 2. We'll see whether warming up his tyres frantically is going to help him on this lap. When he rounds this final corner, I think it will be a good time for you, Reese, to take us through the entire lap with Tripkov, and then maybe by the time that he's ready, we might have some real quick drivers ready to cross the line.
Absolutely, as he hurtles down critically. I mentioned early on, getting that exit off the final corner, turn 16, is critical in this run. A good run will then allow you a heavy braking down to 5th gear, and a lot of these drivers will gear up higher than normal F1 cars, so do note that they will stay higher for the traction around the corner. Turn 3 is a very, very long right-hander. If you don't have the right downforce, you will understeer off the corner. Through turn 4, brilliant overtaking zone if you carry the speed through. Quick shift down to 3rd, short shift back up to 4th, power it out of the exit again. Turn 7 and 8, these two corners here, is very easy to invalidate, and Tripkov messes up slightly. That's going to cost him a couple of attempts as well, and as I mentioned, easy to mess up and invalidate. Coming into the new reprofiled turn 10, easier, well, not only for overtaking for the F1, but easier for the MotoGP as well. Through turn 12, it's a long corner where you have to tickle the throttle on the exit, not put it down too fast to cause oversteer. And you can see the adjustment from Tripkov going through the final three corners, round the last corner. Foot pedal to the metal, DRS open. Has he got enough? It's only enough for P10.
Oh, man. That oversteer moment in turn 7 and 8 really did end up costing him. And now we actually do get to see Halliday, who was starting his lap just as his teammate managed to make it round, as about to try and start his final flying lap as well. We'll see whether he's got that pace to maintain that front row. For the moment, it's Leonard Goetzer who's going through turn 7 and 8 at the moment. Kept it clean, kept it tidy down there, up through turn 9. Almost completely flat, a bit wide of the apex, but hopefully that won't cost him too much time if he was able to maintain the speed through the corner. 8 thousandths up on his previous best time as he enters the final sector. Keep it tidy up here at the top of the corner. Difficult to find traction, and right on cue, he has spun it round. He's ruined his chances, but it's Rishin who's actually slotted it in P2 in the Ferrari. In the meanwhile, now he can switch back to Halliday to see what he's up to on this lap too. He is currently on a decent pace. It's not going to be too well bending. Oh, a little bit close to the yellow sausage curve. That would have cost him some time. Trying to keep it neat and tidy, much closer to the apex than Goetzer was. And now down in towards turn 10 with that DRS open. We'll get to see just how far up he is. It's just about 0.06 of a second. Very wide on the exit, trying to straighten it out for the next corner at turn 11. Keep it tight at the top. Don't struggle for traction. 5th gear, nice and short shifted, and now banging it down through the gears. 4th gear, take it down one more into 3rd. Clip the apex, get it turned, straightened up, and power it down. Now power it through. Just how far are we going to be able to go with this lap time? Halliday, head and shoulders above the rest in qualifying, and he extends his advantage by nearly 0.06 of a second. He's looking to be the one on pole because Rishin has already finished his lap, and everybody else is a little bit too far down or a little bit too far out to be troubling those front spots.
Halliday, wow. Talk about making a statement on the opening race. You have to leave a mark, and if this is the pace we're going to be seeing from him, then I would not be surprised. If he keeps this up, he might get bumped up to the next tier, because that is massive. That is massively ahead. But this is only the start. It's only the first race, so early to say, but Halliday, P1.
And what a strong P1 it was as well. A really, really indomitable performance pretty much from the start of the session to the end. He was on it. The Czech driver manages to pop it on pole by over 0.1 of a second. Probably one of the bigger margins that you're going to see out of this tier 4. And that really does tell the story all by itself. So it's going to be an interesting race. We've got it set up nicely with Jan Halliday taking P1. We've got Rishan taking P2. We've got the German Leonard Goetze taking P3 honours at the moment, with the Finn of Tuomas Lamminen taking up P4. For the rest of the grid, it's Zamaro in P5, Karafalidis P6, Gal in 7th, Menno in 8th, Nagy in 9th, and Hadler rounds out the top 10.
It's gonna be interesting. I'm quite surprised some of the high runners from the F5 who have put themselves into the F4 category. They're not in this picture right now. They're out of the top 10, not doing anything competitive here. And taking account, these drivers that are in the F5 and the ones I pointed out were top 5 in the F5 season. So very, very surprising indeed. And from the weather, I think that is looking pretty dry and a dry race for us.
It's looking a bit overcast, at least in the pit lane, but that shouldn't affect the race conditions by all that much. In fact, it might just help out the tyre degradation a bit because not so extreme heat. But I still think we'll be seeing this only go one way in terms of strategy, which is the way that most things seem to have gone on F1 22 so far, which is medium to hard, or if you want to be a bit spicy, hard to medium.
Yeah, I don't think the two-stop will come out to play. We're not going to really see the soft tyre unless there's a safety car. And, well, that clock is counted down how long till the race actually starts. No formation lap because of the bug. I don't think it still has been fixed. So we are going to go straight into this. And, Boffa, I'm going to hand this over to you.
Okay, well, when everything starts up and we're ready and raring to go, it's going to be an exciting one. Okay, we're actually getting right into it. It's 5 red lights. Hold them for a little bit longer, and they are off to the races. Jan Halliday gets a decent getaway, but the Ferrari, and yet better yet, the Red Bull is sliding up the middle of the pair of them. Leonard Goetze are going to make it 3 wide in towards turn 1. He's the leading car, late on the brakes from the Ferrari. Off track for Goetze. He's going to have to take to the escape road, surely going to have to give those positions back. It is going to be Rishan to lead the field in the Ferrari. Goetze makes his way into P2. Jan Halliday really suffers at the start there, gets mithered into the first 2 corners, but he is on the harder tyres here. I think his compatriots at the front are as well. But moving up towards the back of the field, it's Tuomas Lamminen who is fighting with Bartosz Samaro tooth and nail for P4 and 5 at the moment. Karafalidis has lost out and gone stuck in P6. But he is still also fighting for position against Menno further down the field. There's plenty of changes happening, and I think we have our first incident as Andrew Korapi has taken off at turn 7, I think that is, the bottom of the hill. He's been punted, 5 seconds behind now. His race is almost run, providing he doesn't get a safety car.
Yeah, absolutely. The start. I wish I was commentating, but oh well. Oh, that is what a start from Goetze. He definitely went out there on the attack. Yes, he ran off, but clearly the game said no, you are fine, and he just kept with the Ferrari. Stay close, run it through turn 4, and your opportunity will come into turn 5 if you stay close. And clearly, it's worked out all too well. Already, P8 is looking to be breaking off the train. He already has. Gale has lost a second to Menno, and critically, this early on to lose a second means you're not going to get the benefit of DRS onto lap 3.
Well, speaking of losing a second at the moment, Rishan in the Ferrari in P2 seems to be losing time to Goetze, hand over fist. It's already up to 0.8 of a second. And if I'm Jan Halliday, I'm going to be looking to try and get past this Ferrari as much as possible, considering as he is losing that advantage that Halliday seemed to have on pace, at least in qualifying. Meanwhile, looking a bit further down the field towards this strategy end of things, we've had some round of pit stops already. I'm guessing a few broken wings. That's Nagy, Hadler, Tripkov and Mayer all caught up in a lap 1 incident that's ended up giving them some form of damage. They've all gone onto the medium tyres now. But there was one driver in amongst this foray that started on those medium tyres in the top 10, and that was Nicola Aleda. He's currently sitting in P8, losing time to Menno in front, but remember, he was held up by that slight break in P8 just a moment ago.
Yeah, critically, you need to take advantage of that medium tyre, use it to its full potential, close down that gap to P7, and do what you can. We just saw on stream Jerry Van Bussel, and as I mentioned his name, I'll mention it again, overtaking around the outside of turn 9. Turn 9 being the midsection of the curve. So the middle of the track, that little curve there, round the outside. Brilliant move, bold for P9, and critically that was needed if he wants to progress through the field. Up ahead, Rasheen, he's he's out of the train. He does not
Yeah.
have DRS anymore, and DRS just got activated as well. So he's going to be up under threat by the drivers behind him. Ain't looking good for him.
If you are Rishan, though, and Jan Haladej, the good news for you is that Leonard Goetze has used a considerable chunk of his battery, already down to just 20% remaining, and is currently using yet more to try and make sure he maintains this DRS window. Now, if you are Rishan, you've got about 50% of your battery remaining, and if you're Jan Haladej, you've got about 70% of your battery remaining at the moment. So you're keeping a lot in reserve. Leonard Goetze pushing absolutely flat out with the battery, with the tyres, with everything, leaving nothing on the table. He wants no scraps to go to his competitors behind, and has made a good start thus far. A quick note, by the way, Tomas Gal seems to have had another issue. Whatever happened on those opening laps has been scuffled him back into the pit lane for a fresh set of medium tyres, and inevitably a new front wing. Same case with Alexander Johansson as well.
Yeah, and oh, I could not get his name, but the Haas driver has just spun. I do apologise for not getting the name right, but it's going to be the Alfa Romeo driver taking advantage of the Ferrari's mistake, causing the incident, as the Ferrari will stick with the Alfa Romeo, and unfortunately, what becomes one bad piece of news becomes a second piece of bad news, as the Ferrari driver not only loses the second gap between the leader, but loses a position as well. And he will definitely be investigated, for sure, by the stewards later on.
Yeah, that was a bit of a weird moment there in turn one. Haladej, of course, back on track and back in the running, but down in 8th position. So going to have to use every modicum of the pace that he supposedly has from that qualifying performance and do it here in the race with a higher fuel load. Rishan, of course, now being held up a little bit, I imagine, by Tuomas Lamminen, who's just going to allow Leonard Goetze to get away at this point. We've already had a lot of incidents early on in this race. Of course, lap 1, we had Andrew Korapi taking to the escape road at turn 7, and we've had 6 or 7 other drivers have to go into the pit lane for new front wings or to repair some form of damage. So already, this has been a scrappy race in the midfield, but at the front, that doesn't seem to be too avoided either. Only Leonard Goetze is the only one who's got away without any kind of drama just yet.
Yeah, and I don't think the battles are going to be over. You can already see the Ferrari driver closing in on the Alfa Romeo, and he's not close enough just yet to make a lunge, though that being said, he was eyeing up the opportunity into turn 4. A very common place to make an overtake, as Itzvan is on a charge. Yeah, it's been too scrappy, and you can't even say that, oh, the off-season, they've taken a break and, you know, not done anything. There's so many leagues running right now. I can guarantee you all these drivers are at least in more than one. So they're constantly practicing, they're constantly racing, so it doesn't make any sense why they're getting scrappy and not... And it's not even like an entertaining scrappy, it's a bit childish from the way it looks.
Yeah, it is certainly not the highest quality of driving bit on display this evening so far. I think Milan Meyer has had another problem as well. He's now over a minute behind the rest of the field, so I expect to see something going on there, or at least maybe 20 seconds behind the rest of the field, who is a further 18 seconds behind Tomas Gal. So something's gone wrong there for Milan Meyer again. He's another pit stop behind. So this is an interesting battle now at the front here that we'll keep our eyes on for the foreseeable future. That is not going to be no battery usage there from Rishan. He's keeping his powder dry for the moment. Meanwhile, up front, Tuomas Lamminen was using a little bit of battery to try and stay ahead, feathering the throttle through turn 3 here as well. But I'm a little bit interested here because there's one man who's just been watching all of this unfold, saving his tyres, saving his battery. It's the Alpine of Bartosz Samaro, who's just been keeping his powder very, very dry, keeping his plans completely under wraps and not losing touch, but he had a bit of a snap of oversteer there. I'm not sure whether that was just a bit of netcode latency or something, but looked very much like he got the car quite out of shape.
Almost like he was saying hi to us as you were talking about him. Yeah, he has been holding pace. He's not been over aggressive. He is starting to lose a little bit of touch. You can see on the timings, it's now at 7/10, which to me is a warning sign of, right, if I'm hitting these numbers on a straight, I need to now put my foot down. Just make sure I'm amongst the pack, because we also have to factor in, yes, there is going to be slight amount of hot air that comes off these cars. It's very reduced. You're not going to get too much of it, and even in the game, you don't feel the full effect of it. But you don't want to be constantly close, I know I just contradicted myself, but hear me out. If you're like the Ferrari and the Alfa Romeo, the Ferrari's absolutely screwing over his tyres right now.
Yes.
But if you dip in and out, like the Alpine is doing, yes, you're going to damage your tyres for the time you're close, but you're not going to be doing as much damage. So he just has to make sure he's there, present, and within the fight.
The other interesting thing here is as well the difference between drivers' lines around turn 3. In qualifying, what you'll end up seeing is a lot of drivers trying to take it as tight as possible on turn 3 because it gives you some marginal lap time gain. Meanwhile, in turn 3 in the race, generally you want to be taking the more conventional racing line, in quotation marks, approach to that corner. And what we've just seen is that Tuomas Lamminen and Rishan are both looking to try and take that almost qualifying line around that corner. Meanwhile, Bartos Samaro, to further attest to your point, took a much wider line, which is much easier on the tyres. But interestingly enough, you've just flicked on over to him, so I'll do the same. Jan Halliday, what is going on down here? Being held up by Jerry Van Bussel, and weirdly enough, also being held up by the medium tyre runner of Nicola Aleda. I wouldn't have expected the mediums to be falling off after just 6 laps, but he is starting to be the cork in the bottle here between P6 and everybody else behind.
It's surprising. It's too surprising that I don't think Jerry Van Bussel is going to wait all too long. He does look to the inside. He makes it nice and clean. He's out of VRS as well. Those flashing lights are showing, but it looked like the Haas driver also is getting impatient as well. I don't think the Haas driver wants to be behind Adelaide any more than he wants to. He gets a good run here. He's used all of his ERS. Could he lunge one down the inside of turn 4? No. But Jerry Van Bussel, critically, he can now get away, well, with what he can because he has no ERS left.
Yes, interestingly enough, neither does Nicola Aleda. He has about 30%, but who has even less is Halliday behind on 6% battery. He's been draining it to just try and maintain closeness to have an opportunity to overtake. And what he's currently hoping for is that Aleda just drop out of that DRS window, because for the time being, he is not going to be getting that assistance because, of course, the car in front has it too, so he doesn't really feel the effects of it. As it is, Aleda isn't really dropping off the back of Van Bussel at the moment, and Halliday is just really going to need a bit of a miracle if he wants to get by, or try to devise some very elegant and spicy move. Very, very close up here in the final sector. There has been a spinner. I think it's Alexander Johansson in the second sector up through the up the hill at turn 8. But this time around, it looks to me like Halliday is not going to be close enough. In fact, it looks to me like Aleda is not going to be close enough to be making a move either, but has still brought that deficit back down by a couple of tenths, and that's the advantage of DRS. Now it's Van Bussel's prerogative to try and get away, but he has lost over 0.3 of a second on that lap alone to the cars in front of him. Maybe those medium tyres were actually keeping them up.
Maybe it was. And up ahead, I don't know if you saw on the timing screens, but the Ferrari of Rishan, again, he's closing in the gap on those straights. I feel his best opportunity is to launch one into turn 1. He's got a good exit. The timing screen shows that, but he needs to make the move turn 1 if he wants to do anything. We're a little bit off the pit window, so strategically speaking, that Ferrari can stay where he is, not over-aggress too much, play safety with his tyre, wait till around, what, lap, I don't know, 15, 16, 17, somewhere along those lines, then make the move and pit. That's what he will be looking to do. He is not probably going to make an overtake. He's a little too far back, though. That being said, if he uses
ERS is powerful.
Yeah, ERS is very powerful. It's looking to be super powerful as the Ferrari does encroach ever so closer. But as mentioned, he's holding back. He's not wanting to be the force through the air, and sticks behind the Alfa Romeo just that little bit longer.
I think for Rishan here, I think he's starting to realise very quickly that he and Lamminen do not have the same pace that Goetze does out front. Or at the very least, they don't have the pace to bring that gap all the way back up. A little bit of an oversteer moment from Lamminen there through turn 4. But they don't have the pace to quite catch him all the way back up. So for Rishan to overtake Lamminen at this particular junction would just leave him vulnerable to further battling, and then potentially further position loss to the likes of Zamaro and Karafalidis behind. Now, of course, that would help people further down the field, but in terms of running the race that Rishan can at the moment, he's hoping for a mistake out of Goetze up front that brings them back to him, or Laminin to all of a sudden pick up the pace, because if he overtakes him, he isn't going to be able to break that DRS, is what he's thinking.
Exactly that. Well, lap 10, we'll turn to lap 11. The Red Bull driver, we haven't spoken about him. He's been chilling, relaxing, probably playing Angry Birds on his phone, most likely, because it's been that relaxed. Meanwhile, in second place, as we've been talking, the two drivers are going to go fighting it all the way down, as finally, Roshan, he's deciding to go for the move.
Ooh,
No!
very deep.
He doesn't. He braked earlier to make sure that Alfa Romeo was ahead. That was a strategical call to give back that position. And critically, also a bit further behind, I've just noticed, swap a position as Barzo has switched positions, dropping down to P5.
I think what we might have just seen there from Rishan is a dress rehearsal for when the pit window starts to come on through. He'll ideally want to get ahead just before the pit window opens so that he can maintain or potentially look to undercut Laminin just in front of him to try and give himself a little bit of a buffer. That would be the ideal situation, but as the lead car, you do get that kind of prerogative over it. But yes, like you mentioned, Karafalidis and Zamaro swapping positions back there. I think it might have been a little mistake out of Zamaro that allowed Karafalidis to come on through, but for the time being, this piece of strategy chess up the front of this little quartet is looking to be quite interesting. Rishan's still quite happy to sit in behind his competition. Laminin at the moment still also looking quite happy to be leading the pace. Let's have a quick check-in on the ERS situation for both of these drivers. It is Laminin currently sitting with 21% battery and Rishan sitting with 50% battery. Early back off there as well. Lift and coast in towards turn 1. Made absolutely no effort to overtake. He's just sitting in that DRS, charging that battery up, ready to make the charge when the pit window opens.
Yeah, I feel he's got more pace than Laminan. 100% he's got more pace, and I guess that what we want to see, and especially as a viewer, we want to see an overtake happen. We want to see Roshan overtake the Alfa Romeo and pull ahead. Now, as a viewer, I see your point. I would see that point. I would understand it. But I think we've kind of half explained why. I don't think we explained why that's a bad move. The reason it's a bad move, 1, you're punching a hole through the air. That's going to slow you down. 2, you don't have DRS. And 3, these guys are all very similar in pace. So even if you do get past, you would have to be punching in quality time after quality time after quality time, which will ruin your ERS, it will ruin your tyres, and when you go into no man's land, you kind of get stuck, and it will be at no man's land if Roshan does try and overtake. So that's the reason why we're not seeing the overtake come, and especially throughout the field, it's become quite quiet. It's become a game of strategy throughout the grid, as Andrew Corpora will be going into the pits as Roshan goes against the grain. I think he's had enough. I think he's now realised he's got pace, and he's going to try and be the guy in no man's land.
I think he has, but also I did notice that on the straight there was a little wiggle given by Laminin. Whether that means come on by and let's try and break the pair of them behind us using your pace, or whatever it might mean. Either way, the pin has well and truly been pulled here by Roshan now, already extending the advantage to just over 0.5 of a second, now up to 6. We'll see how much ERS he ends up using on this lap in order to try and break those behind him, but it's clear from sitting behind he's got the assessment of his competitors. He's sat behind, he's watched where Laminin appears to be strong, both setup-wise and just in driving style as a whole, and he's now just trying to make the most of it. He saw where he could make the move, he took his opportunity, and now he's trying desperately to stretch those behind him. And you can see Karafalidis is also going to try and keep with his teammate, but even that is proving to be a bit of a stretch now. The pin has well and truly been pulled, like I say, and it looks to me like Rishan is trying to set a pace that maybe those behind can't quite compete with. I will note, though, that there has been quite the defiant charge come back in here, and this quartet may not stay as a quartet for much longer, because look at Jerry Van Bussel, who's just got himself nearly into the DRS of the Alpine ahead.
Yeah, I'm not going to be surprised if he does keep the charge going. He has no ERS himself, so he has been attacking throughout and trying to close the gap, because we're coming to the pit window now. I like to talk of F1, and there's a little cool analogy. You've got Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3. Phase 1 is your start of the race. It's where most of the action happens. Phase 2, which is what we're heading into, is where the drivers start to realise, okay, let's close up the gaps, let's get as close to the car ahead as possible, and let's undercut them or overcut them in the pits. And we're getting to the pit window. Lap 15 onwards, that's when we're going to start to see possible changes. We might see some drivers try and extend the hard tyre if their tyres are on good pace, and maybe, and it's only a maybe, might see some take that risk and try and attempt softs. And I think the people who would try that would be the people out of the points to do that form of strategy. But the top 10, I would give it... Ooh, I think the first one was going to come in lap 17. That's my prediction.
Well, we might be seeing a little bit earlier for the likes of Nicholas Aleda in P7, as he's still on those medium tyres, of course. And also starting to be dropped off a bit here. In fact, we've just seen the first pit stop. You were wrong. It is going to be Thomas Laminen, who has dove into the pits after just 14 laps on those hard tyres. He's going to do a longer medium stint, one would assume. And just right on cue, Nicholas Aleda has been taken by Jan Haladej now. Up the front, that has enabled Rishan to be off. Horse bolted from the stables. He is off the leash now, out of that DRS. He doesn't have to worry too much about Karafalidis behind now, because he hasn't got that extra couple of mile an hour worth of pace from the opening in the rear wing. And interestingly enough, with the pressure and pace that he's been exhibiting, he has put 0.7 of a second in the last 2 laps into that lead that Leonard Goetze had extended. So there's going to come a point soon where Goetze is going to have to respond.
Absolutely, Goetze will have to respond, and I do apologise to the stream. Buffers, your mic is double voicing. I can hear.
What does that mean?
I can hear 2 of you repeating itself. So I do apologise for the stream. Hopefully, we can get that fixed while we're on the go. But yeah, Goetze will have to now respond. Well, actually, being a bit further, he could try and extend his stint maybe a little bit longer. We're about to find out. He does respond by pitting now. So critically, he feels he's in danger, even with a 3-second lead. Rishan goes, no, I'm actually okay with this pace. I am fine. Now, as a reminder, with these drivers, they have to hit a button when they're in the pit lane, and that will determine their pit stop time. And these guys are hot on it. So where will Goetze come out? The Alfa Romeo is coming down the pit straight, but I don't think it's going to be close enough, and the technical lead will stay with Goetze.
All right, is that any better?
That is a lot better. Yes.
Still echoing. Okay, not sure what that was. Potentially because OBS Ninja was still open and unmuted, but that could be it. Who knows?
We never know.
Either way, we're cracking on. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. And well, like you mentioned, pit stop round has started. Leonard Goetze dives in, and now with those medium tyres, has the behemoth task in this game of getting them up to temperature. It's not the easiest thing to do in the world, but given a few corners at maybe full breakneck pace, he might be able to make something out of it. Now, that also does give him the undercut advantage, which is relatively powerful. It just depends on how big of an in-lap Rishan is going to do, and whether he is going to respond right away, or whether he's going to hold station for a moment and just stick to his guns, and he's going for another trip around. So, to me, this screams that he's looking to try and get extra tyre life out of those medium tyres at the end, and potentially look to have some late race pace out of this one instead. So, while he continues to circulate, we'll take a look further down the field. Haladej, on his recovery drive, seems like a good place to start. His person just in front of him, which I believe to have been Bartos Samaro, has just pitted, which has left him now without DRS. So he's going to have to do a bit of work to get back up to the rear wing of Miltos Karafalidis.
Yeah, a lot of work to be done. I'm just trying to keep an eye of where people are, who's gained, who's lost. Jerry Van Bussel currently in a great position, currently P11. That would put him at the moment P5. That's, of course, we're assuming where Rishan's going to come out. We've got to factor this all in. It's a lot of maths I'm trying to work out here, so bear with me while I try and work some good maths out. But, yeah, this could be interesting, because it's staying out this long. Lap 17 is where I said they would come in, but
yep.
I would be in now. I would be in
Here's
now.
an interesting piece of food for thought for you.
Go for it.
Thomas Laminen came in 2 laps before, and as such, possibly may already
Rishan's
have
in.
the undercut completely on Rishan. We'll soon find out, as like you say, he's in. Into the pit lane, Rishan comes. Hopefully it's going to be a clean stop for him, and there's going to be no delays or someone coming into the pit that holds him up, but I believe that setting should be nice and turned on. So on those fresh mediums go, we should see Leonard Goetze go straight past him on the straight, and that shouldn't really be much of a contest. He already had a pretty hefty advantage as it was over the Ferrari driver. But the interesting thing for me is, where does he come out in relation to Thomas Lamminen? It seems that he's going to come out just about ahead of Lamminen. Despite pulling that second advantage over the course of the end of the hard stint, it is disapparated now. It's gone. It is just a tenth of a second, and he's on cold tyres. Lamminen's going to switch to the inside surely for turn 4. Keeps it nice and tidy for now. Not going to take any unnecessary lunges. But just bear that in mind. These tyres are still not going to be up to temperature just yet for Rishan. They're still going to be about, what, 80 degrees by this point around the lap. Meanwhile, Lamminen's are going to be comfortably in the high 90s, working at the perfect operating range. And as such, Rishan is going to be losing time to Leonard Goetze, who pitted just that bit earlier than he did. Maybe that time will be made up towards the end of the race. Weaving on the straight when he's got DRS behind. That is a bit suspect, but we'll see what the stewards think of it, if they think anything of it, if it gets reported. Either which way, this is now the battle for P2. The people currently up front, Halliday will be slotting in somewhere later on, but as Karafalidis pits, this is where it's all going to shake out now. With the difference in pit stop strategy in terms of laps pitted, we'll get to see where everybody shakes out in this mess.
Absolutely, and sorry, but Rishan, you definitely shouldn't be weaving like that on the straight with a car very close behind you, because what if that Alfa Romeo did want to attack? He 100% could have. Lamine definitely wanted to make a move. You could see he was close, but we'll leave it down to the stewards indeed. And critically, the time has been lost for Rishan. Rishan was at about, what, 2.6 before for Leonard went into the pits. It's now back up to 3 seconds, so he's lost out in the pit stop phase. But advantage him as the rear end kicks out. Ooh, that got a bit sketchy. Critically, he is on fresher tyres, and it will mean he can now pound and put a bit more effort into those tyres come the end of the race. But you've also got to fend off a very raging Alfa Romeo behind you.
Yes, and the other thing here to think about as well is for Thomas Lamminen. If these two start fighting, it does end up bringing Bartosz Samaro, Miltos Karafalidis, and as a result, Jerry Van Bussel into the mix, because they have been kind of siphoned out a little bit, stretched by the pace that Rishan was exhibiting towards the end of the hard stint, and the pace that Lamminen has therefore put in on his first few laps on this medium tyre. So it's all stretched out in the pit stop phase a little bit, as now we see Jan Halliday come in for his stop 2. That's pretty much everybody's stop now, apart from the front 2 drivers in QKS and Jirofu. So we'll wait for those to come in to figure out where the whole order shakes on down to. But for the time being, it's medium time. And at the moment, it seems to be that Rishan has got the pace back in these mediums. They're warm, they're ready and raring to go. He's sunk 4-5 tenths out of the lead of Leonard Goetze for the time being already, and has extended his advantage over Lamminen behind to over 8 tenths of a second.
Yeah, battle down for P9 at the moment. This is brewing up to be something, and my last experience with a battle for P9 was very spectacular. The guys, when they're battling for the final points, will do anything and everything to get what they can, and God damn it. Halliday, thank you. It's early, as I said, when the season comes later on, these names will be flawless. It's a new group of people. I do apologise. I'm going to apologise throughout. We'll get it eventually. I'm going to call him Jan. Jan holding up the Williams and the AlphaTauri behind him. That battle closing in, but Jan also closing into the front runners. He's just dipped within the second with Jerry Van Bussel behind him, and now we're going to get a true, well, one driver away from a true representation of the grid. P7 is not out of the equation for the Haas driver, who started on pole. So we'll keep an eye out on that.
I would argue that if he has the pace that he showed in qualifying, if it does transpire into race pace, then there is potential for even as far up as P5 here at the moment, because Karafalidis is starting to close in on Zamaro, and Van Bussel has closed in on Karafalidis. So what was a pretty stretched out field after the pit stops has started to concertina back up again. Meanwhile, up at the front of the field, Rishan has just posted the fastest lap of the race, an 18.925, I believe it was. And that has brought him within 2.3 seconds of Leonard Goetze in front. So I would say that let's not count them out of this one just yet. He has also dropped off Thomas Lamminen as well. So there's no DRS assistance for any of what would be the net race podium finishers at the moment.
This could get interesting at the end as finally QKS goes into the pits. They'll be the last of the runners to make their pit stop, and this is a true representation of the grid. But we're going to keep an eye on this mid-pack, this mid-battle for what will be now P4. As as we mentioned, Jerry Van Bussel has closed the gap. The Williams driver of Mirandis has closed the gap in P8. And it extends all the way down to P9. So P4 to P9 is one big train where it's going to stay put as it is for now. I don't think any overtakes are really going to happen. Or we're not going to see much until lap 30 unless someone makes a critical mistake.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that critical mistake is going to have to be rather spectacular to influence this a lot. A safety car right now could do a great deal in terms of influencing this field into a pretty weird state, let's say. For the time being, that gap's still crawling down. We've got 11 more laps of play to still be had here. And Rishan has taken another 3/10 out of Leonard Goetze's lead on this lap alone. We're now below 2 seconds, the gap. And if he continues this pace, he'll be right on his gearbox in just about 4 to 5 laps time. Thomas Lamminen, on the other hand, has not really got an answer for the pace that Rishan is showing up front. The Dutch driver seems to have everything sorted over the fin, but really the big fight for me is all the way down in P7 through P4 now. That is going to be very interesting, especially if Bartos Samaro can get onto the back of Thomas Lamminen as well and make that an even longer DRS train.
Yeah, I just changed to that, and once again, the Haas driver who started on pole has been spun again in turn 2, and the tyres are overheated. Overheated tyres. He's lucky to not put that in the wall, and the recovery drive has just gone out the window. Everything that was looking so great for him has gone, and it is heartbreak to see, but it's one person out. And I was about to ask you in a question, what would you do if the safety car did come out now? And it nearly did.
It nearly did. Yeah, you're very right there. I'm not quite sure what happened. From what I saw, the brief glimpse of it that I got, Halliday was putting his nose somewhere where it really didn't have any business being, wasn't significantly alongside Van Bussel in front. And as such, that has impacted the gap to the leading cars. As such, now Van Bussel's had to work and hustle. Van Bussel on the hustle through this final sector to get his car back in towards that DRS window of Karafalidis in front, but he has managed to do so. So back in the train he goes, head in the slipstream, and just crunching down that time in front.
Yeah, he will have to hustle. I hate you for the fact you even made that happen. It's stuck in my head. Yeah, and P6 as well for him. Very good drive from him. I think he started... Oh, where did he start? You know what? Let's find out where that man started, because he's done a brilliant job. 13 places gained, so if my maths is correct, that would be... 16, 17, 18, 19th. Jerry Van Bussel started.
Quite the effort from Van Bussel so far. Strategy worked out nicely and his pace has been strong, but more importantly than that, it seems that he's kept his nose clean throughout the course of this race so far. And as such, the drivers around him have not quite been so fortunate, and he has been there to prey on their downfall. Now, at the front, the gap has stabilized ever so slightly. It's not been coming down at quite the same commensurate rate it was in the last few laps. It's only been a handful of tenths in this lap, but it seems that over the end of Sector 2 into the start of Sector 3 is where Rishan really holds the pace advantage over the Red Bull in front. Goetze has got to do a bit here. Seems to have a little bit more straight line speed. I'm not sure whether that's because of ERS usage or not. But let's take a quick stock of the ERS situation for these leading two, shall we? At the moment, 16% for Leonard Goetze. Meanwhile, it is 30% for Rishan behind. Now, in the train, let's do a quick ERS check too. The leader of the train, Thomas Lamminen, the conductor, currently sits at 6%, Bartos Zamaro at 11, just behind. It is Militas Karafalidis with 37 and Van Bussel with 8. So the healthiest and wealthiest of those drivers is the AlphaTauri driver positioned in 5th.
Yeah, and we might be getting a new contender in there, Andriy Molnar. He's just overtaken the Williams driver. He wasn't waiting around, made that nice and clear, but he's used up quite a lot of his ERS to get that overtake done. And he's only 1.2 seconds up behind off this train, closed down the gap, and he's eyeing up the rear. He would be eyeing up the rear end of Jerry Van Bussel, who, as you mentioned, doesn't have a lot of ERS himself. But I feel my prediction of lap 30 overtakes might be wrong. The Alfa Romeo drivers, I just saw Jerry Van Bussel getting a very twitchy exit, which will compromise massively and allow Andriy Molnar into the DRS train, and the train has just extended from P3 all the way down to P8.
One thing that's also worthy of note as well for Andriy Molnar is that he's actually started from the back. He was disqualified in qualifying for obstructing the pit lane. We're still not sure quite how that happened, but he has made his way up to 7th, and Halliday has drawn into the pit lane. It's not been the evening that he would have wanted, and as such, he is out of the Spanish Grand Prix. So that makes for our 3rd retirement of the race. A couple of spells of bad luck for those drivers, but for the Haas troop today, what looked to be a promising result in qualifying has turned out to be an absolute disaster, with Jane Tripkov currently residing in P14 as well, 14 seconds off the back of the 12th position, and further yet, probably about 18 seconds off of the points. So not going to be happening for the Haas boys today.
Yeah, I'm just having a look near the back. Unfortunately, there's a few drivers who have not been able to pull anything out the bag. Tamas Gale down in 15th, 21 seconds off the next driver ahead. He's not had much luck. Patrick Halder and Milan Meyer all not having a great day. Not the way you want to enter your first race into this tier, as I just saw the Alpine in P4 break early. So he is being patient here. I just spotted that. He's been really cautious, not wanting to overtake just yet. But we are closing in onto the hellish final 3 laps, which I am looking forward to happen.
Yes, and those final 3 laps might present a very nice opportunity for Rishan up front too. The Ferrari has got dangerously close now to that DRS window. It was just previously at 1.2 seconds, but a little bit of extra pace been found here by Leonard Goetzer in the 2nd sector. We'll see whether that comes back down, as it traditionally has done in the 3rd sector, where the Ferrari appears to be a bit stronger. A bit like real life, really, where it's better in the slow speed and the Red Bull's more of a straight line machine. Either way, you can see the gap diminishing, and it seems that Rishan really working his tyres, really working his car through this sector. He's gained 0.2 of a second, not quite in the DRS just yet. We might have to go another time round this circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya in order to get into that DRS window. But remember this, Rishan has tyres that are 2 laps younger. So everything is playing into his hands at the moment.
Yeah, they might be 2 laps younger, but if you're not looking after them lap after lap, then those 2 laps can disappear very quickly. I've seen drivers, and I will give an example of the development driver from McLaren Shadow pulling out 70% on his tyres and doing the entire race on the same set of tyres, while everyone else pitted and then worked their way up to 70% after a pit stop. So it's all about tyre management, how well you've been managing it, as well as keeping up the pace. So yes, Rishan pitted 2 laps earlier, but how well has he looked after them, as the mid-pack is still, they're on each other now. They've closed the gap up even more. It was about 0.6 for a few of them. It's now down to under 0.4, around about those marks. And the pot thickens as Rishan has just entered the 2nd mark. He is within DRS range and ready to pounce.
This will give him a lot of confidence as well. It means he doesn't have to work as hard now to stay with his competitor up front. He's now got that DRS. It gives him a free 2-3 of a second down this kilometre-long front straight. It gives him everything he needs to play with, and that gap will only get reduced hand over fist now. will also give him the opportunity to save just that little bit more battery. The additional closing speed into the first corner and into turn 10 does give you that little bit more ERS recovery overall, so the DRS helpful for that too.
Miltos having an eye on Bartos in for P4. He nudged his way around. He's looking for the opportunity. We're in the window where we're going to see some attacks, where we're going to see some moves. So it's a case of build up your charge, build up your RS, and then deploy it where you can. We're going to see most of the action happening turn 1 and following through into turn 4. That's where the action is going to happen the most. We might see some into turn 10, which they're about to head into. This is turn 9 here. End of the straight. If you're close enough, a good enough exit, turn 10, we might see 1 or 2 moves down here.
Might see a couple of optimistic lunges in the dying laps when the risk barometer in your head starts to go out the window a little bit. I think we'll also see things settle down at the front now, just whilst we wait for those final laps to occur. I think if you're Rishan here, if you're the Dutchman, you don't want to be giving the German ahead of you an opportunity to clap back. So you want to try and overtake at the latest possible option, the latest possible availability. You want to hold it to the last lap maybe, and then take your chances on that front straight. For the time being, that seems to be what's happening up front, but back in the pack, it is still holding station for the time being. Van Bussel has a little bit of a pry, maybe a dress rehearsal for next lap. He's just eyeing up his competition in front, and Karafalidis might have to drive on his mirrors a little bit now, look a little bit more defensively. You can see he's just dropped back ever so slightly from Zamaro up front, and that's just going to give the little bit of confidence that Van Bussel is looking for. But better yet, he's being hustled from behind by Andre Molnar too. It's all driving in your mirrors here. The only person that's not is going to be the one driver at the back of all this in Mirandix.
Yeah, and he's going to be enjoying this moment, because if one makes the overtake, they're going to slow down because of it. That's then going to allow opportunity for him to capitalize on the opportunity. Rishan is staying to the rear of our race leader. He's been race leader throughout this race, holding the pack, making the pace of the pack. Well, I wouldn't say making the pace. He's been way ahead of it. And finally, Rashan's getting his revenge, getting his opportunity to come back. Lap 31 we go. And is Rashan going to take the risk now or wait a bit longer? He's got the DRS. Is he using the ERS? I don't think so. I don't think he'll make the move just yet. Move it back to the mid-pack. Who's going to be bold enough to make a move on lap 31? They're all looking. You can see a couple of lights flashing, but nothing yet.
The one who's going to be the one to start all this, the catalyst, the spark to ignite the flame, is going to be the Alpine of Bartos Samaro. He is the one who doesn't have to worry about the driver in front of him having DRS. And better yet, he has been stockpiling battery that Thomas Laminen hasn't had the same luxury of doing. This isn't the first time that Laminen has found himself in a less than desirable position without DRS at the front of a train. And as such, Samaro here, with 43% of his battery remaining, is looking rather strong. And yet still, Karafalidis in a much similar position with quite high amounts of battery. Van Bussel and Andre Molnar behind do not have that luxury at their disposal. So keep your eyes on number 4 and number 5 at the moment, because they'll be the ones to try and pull it through in the later portions of this race.
Yeah, we're heading back to the front two once again. Lap 32 now out of 33. It is the penultimate lap. I think I got the right term for it. The one before the last. As Rishan will start to close the gap once again. Do you make the move here? He's definitely closing that gap a lot faster than he was before. So now he's getting that test run, showing his marks, what he's made of. But I can see on the map that Williams is looking very good, but it's going to be up ahead. You said it would be the Alpine to make the first move. He does make the first move onto the pack. Has he done it too early, though? Because now he is going to be the one that leads the pack into the final lap.
Now, the crucial thing here for Zamaro is that he has to deploy all of this battery. He deployed most of it in terms of getting past Laminen in the first place. He is hoping, praying, in fact, that those behind Laminen decide it's time to get a bit feisty for it and give him the opportunity to just break away, or at least find a comfortable distance that means that he won't get attacked on. But as it is, up the front of the field, this is where it's about to go down. Rishan still trying to hold close to Goetze. Drops back a little bit, of course, through that second sector due to the nature of the car setup, but in towards the final sector is where the Ferrari has been extremely strong so far. closes that gap down. Doesn't want to be too close in case he doesn't quite get a good enough drive, but I don't know if he's going to be close enough this time around. He has 19% battery, which he's deploying a lot of it. Goetze is also using all of his as well. They are both completely depleted. It's into turn 1. They're going to have to go. A jink to the inside. It's going to have to go round the outside for the Ferrari. Keeps it tight. Pushed off track ever so slightly, but he gives him enough space. It's clean. It's brilliant. It's brash. Goetze is keeping it in there, and he's made contact with him. Oh no, they've collided. And now Goetze has lost out massively on the inside of turn 3. Going to have to drive the car so well to make any ground back up, but that surely will be investigated. A little bit of contact, a bit of a collision. I'm not sure whose nose was at fault, but either way, back down the field as that battle looks to be settled. This one certainly isn't. Van Bussel looking to try and dummy towards the inside of turn 6 as he goes down the hill, getting it up into turn 7 now. It's all or nothing for these guys on this final lap.
Absolutely, and this is the last opportunity that's coming up right now. You need the best exit of turn 9 before you lunge it down. You can already see that the Williams at the back of this pack, he's going to look to the inside. He ain't going to make the move, and it's all going to be settled, all going to be calm for the rest of the race, unless the Williams want to do something a bit bold and wild and unorthodox from the pack. But it is Rishan. He has been at the second place. He's been third. He's not been at the front, but he will win the Spanish Grand Prix.
Leonard Goetze comes home to take a well-earned P2. It's unfortunate he doesn't get it on the day, but Bartos Samaro does hold his own to get P3 across the line. Laminen takes P4 honours. Points for Karafalidis. It's a good day for the Alfa Romeo squad. They'd have liked to have got a podium out of it, but still, Van Bossel denied of any further progress. The comeback drive from Molnar still quite strong, and Morandix holds on to the back of the coattails to get P8, with Karapi, who ended up having that lap 1 incident, if you recall, doing a 21-lap stint on the hard tyres to bring it home for points in P9, with the Aston Martin of QKS making it to P10.
An absolutely tense race. I agree with our starting statement. Not the massive amount of overtaking, but when there was, wow, that was some bold lunging moves which led to some side-by-side action. And Rimash, well done. It did not look too good. Rishan, sorry. Did not look good for him from the get-go. Lost out on an opportunity at the start, but just kept with it, kept going, and next thing you know, with persistence, getting P1.
Yeah, a brilliant race from the Ferrari driver. Showed exquisite pace throughout, as well as good racecraft. After that turn 1 kerfuffle in which Leonard Goetze was allowed to get away, that incident that happened with Halliday as well in the opening laps, he manages to come back from about 3-4 seconds down over the pit stop phase and cracks it in for a very well-earned victory. That'll be a happy day for him. The Dutchman takes the lead of the championship, of course, with it being the first race of the season, but a strong finish from Goetze with Zamaro rounding out the podium. The pole snatches it in the Alpine.
Yeah, and brilliant race indeed. And the action will not end. If you are lucky enough, and I think the other races will still be happening. The other tiers are still racing as we speak. There's definitely, I think it's tier 3 and 5 are currently on as of right now. But if you want to only see tier 4, and specifically only tier 4, then stay tuned next week as we'll be heading to the Bahrain track, a track which I do have a bit of love for.
You do? Okay, interesting. Bahrain International Circuit, it's a good track. It's proved some good moments in league racing, for sure. Not maybe in real life, but league racing's good for it.
Absolutely. This calendar's definitely unorthodox, though. You know, we've
I'll agree on that.
Yeah, we've got Monaco on the calendar, which okay for racing isn't great, but let's get a bit of the yay on there. But we've got the tracks like United States on there, which is brilliant for racing. Silverstone's on there. We're getting Australia back on the track, and then Portimao for race 7. Now that always has a little bit of a surprise here and there, and I'm looking forward to the season, and especially with that racing. You know, at the start felt childish, but it matured as the race went on.
Yeah, absolutely did. It really did get much better as the race went on. Like you say, at the start, it was a little bit of a a junior class race, shall we say. A little bit too much carnage, a little bit too much nonsense. But despite that, it does all sieve out in the end. It was a fun race. I very much enjoyed that.
Absolutely. Thank you all for watching, and stay tuned next week for the next race in Bahrain.
This broadcast was brought to you by GT Omega, proudly supporting PSGL.